William Alexander Ribble family, circa 1907. William Alexander Ribble was known as Pooh by his family and Uncle Billy by the community. He was born in 1851 and died in 1948 at the age of 97. In 1872, Pooh married Annie Davidson. In 1874, they had a son, Thomas Edwin Ribble, that went by Eddie. Sadly, in 1876, Annie and a baby died during childbirth. In 1878, Pooh married Nancy Cooch, whose nickname was Nanny. She raised Eddie as if he were her own. In 1881, Pooh and Nanny had their first child, a daughter, Leora Ribble, and she went by Ora. The next year, a son, Horace, was born December 12, 1882. On July 30th, 1902, Horace married Zuma Tipton. A son, Horace Lafayette Ribble Jr., was born on August 3, 1903. Horace Jr. went by HL all his life. Really close family and friends just called him H. And on June 14, 1904, a daughter, Fatine Ribble, was born. Fatine lived to be 102, dying in 2006. The following video was done in May 2009 at the October 2008 get-together of Pooh's descendants. Everyone was a great-grandchild of Pooh except Horace's descendants. While Ed, Ora, and Josie's children were going to college, Horace's children got married and started having kids. This caused a generation difference between the descendants. Two of Pooh's great-great-grandchildren, Horace's great-grandchildren, HL's grandchildren, and Billy Lloyd's children, Wayne and Dana, were interviewed. Due to Wayne becoming ill at the October 2008 reunion, the video had to be put off. The Caldwell family was kind enough to open their home and do the video in May 2009. I was telling stories without any notes. Therefore, a few of my facts may be wrong, so double check them if you use them.
Introduce yourselves.
I'm Wayne Ribble, 61 and a half years old, born in Graham, Texas, Young County. That's about it. That's my life story.
How are you related to Pooh?
Oh. Do I have to start?
However you want to start.
My father was Bill Ribble. His father was H.L. Ribble. His father was Horace Ribble. His father was W.A. Pooh Ribble. That's about my life story.
Okay.
Was your granddad, you said H.L., was he also Horace?
Nah, there's some confusion over that. His birth certificate supposedly says H.L.
Just H.L.
His father's name was Horace Lafayette Ribble.
Right.
But he was supposedly just named H.L. And everybody always referred to him as H.L. or just H. A lot of people just H.
But you will see places, maybe his death certificate says H.L. Ribble Jr. So some people thought...
Some people made him differentiate because it was the same as his father's initials or something. I don't know, but he would throw the junior in if he had to.
I'm Dana Ribble. I am Wayne's sister, and we have two other sisters, one between us, Cherry Ribble Williams, and one under me, Penny Ribble Vincent. And in the picture that we had at the reunion that I was doing the name tags on, our grandfather is the one standing right on the right knee of Pooh, which when you look at the picture to the left, he was 3 years old. And Horace is far left on the right, on the last row, and his wife Azuma is standing next to him, and they're holding his sister Fatine. And Fatine just died a couple of years ago at the age of 102. And Fatine and H.L. married brother and sister. Fatine married Lloyd Dillander, and H.L. married Jimmy Dillander. And so we have what we refer to as double cousins. And H.L. and Jimmy had 2 children, our father Bill Ribble, and then he had a sister 15 years later, Modine. And our grandfather, H.L., told wonderful stories. He was a great storyteller. And he would tell us stories that Pooh would tell him when he was a little boy. And then of course he had, Horace was an interesting man, and he built that rock house that we saw that day after their house burned down, and that was Pooh's father and mother's original land that they settled on in 1854. And I'm not sure
Where the rock house was?
Where the rock house was.
Was the original land.
Yes, that was a piece of the original land. And then when we drove down by the creek, y'all were with us, that was part of the original land. And Pooh's father died in 1856 when he went to get his father and move him out to Rock Creek. And when he got back to Honey Grove to pick up his father, he found his father sick with typhoid fever, and he nursed him and then got it himself. And both of them died in August of 1856 and are buried in Honey Grove. And Wayne and I went out to see the where they're buried in Vineyard Grove. It's way out on farmland. It's very hard to find, but we found it. And they were buried there in 1856. So Pooh's mother was widowed in the Rock Creek area with 6 children. I've lost count of them, but one of them was what they called afflicted. I don't know if she was mentally retarded or had some type of affliction, but she actually lived with her mother her entire life, and they were in Indian country. And our grandfather would tell us stories that she would hide under the rock cliffs of Rock Creek, and the Indians would be standing on the top. And do you remember any of the Indian stories?
Well, one time, her and the kids were the only ones at home. The Indians came and just walked in the house, and the white folk gathered in the corner. She protecting her kids. The Indians just ate whatever they could find to eat and got up and left. So all they wanted was to eat. Didn't hurt anybody, didn't harm anybody. I mean, it was scary.
Does anybody know what tribe of Indians they were?
Well, they were very close to the Indian reservation, and that's what caused John Ribble to move to that area. Is they had mills in the Honey Grove, Clarksville area of Texas, and they got some type of consignment of flour to sell to Fort Belknap to give to the Indian reservation. So the Indian reservation was actually where that log cabin was built. That was part of the Indian reservation, so it wasn't very far from where he built his house. And I'm guessing that he was coming there to do some type of work, help out the Indian reservation. And on the Indian reservation there was Tonkawas. It was kind of what they call peaceful Indians. There was a Comanche reservation close to Throgmorton, and some of those Indians would come down to that area and raid, and kind of people would blame it on the reservation Indians, but the history books are kind of mixed on who really did that. But the Tonkawas and the Caddos seemed to be peaceful, and the stories that my grandfather would say would be nice stories about those Indians. But she did move the children and herself to Parker County for a short period of time when the Indians got really, really bad in that area. It was right after the reservation was moved to Oklahoma. And then she came back. During the Civil War, Pooh was too young to go to the Civil War, but his 3 oldest brothers went to the Civil War. And Harvey Washington was only there a year or 2 and came back ill, but the other 2 were there for the duration. But during that time, the afflicted daughter Ellen was raped and became pregnant. And we never heard of that. Our grandfather never told any stories about that. But I found it out in doing the genealogy. I found it out, and I got in touch. Well, actually, the cousin got in touch with me that's descended from her.
Oh, really?
And the family story from
Ellen?
Yes, from Ellen. And the family story from her, well, her daughter, when Ellen had a daughter and named her Alice, and this guy's name was Melvin Matthews, and Alice married a Matthews. And he was the great-grandchild of the great-great-grandchild. And he said that their family story was that she was raped by an Indian or by a Yankee. And I don't know if there was any Yankees in that area. It could be Indian, but a DNA test would instantly tell if it was Indian. I kind of suggested that he take a DNA test, but I don't know that he's going for that yet. But nobody ever mentioned that illegitimate child that she had from a rape.